help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wonder where I'm bound.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to What's the Rush? This is a place of exploration, curiously looking at ourselves and the world around us through the eyes and hearts of some really amazing human beings. And what I aim to uncover here, as the name What's the Rush implies, is what do we find when we pause or slow down our pace for a second and look at what we might have been missing in our speedy quest. So today's guest, Teddi Dean, is perfect for this concept. He's a professional skateboarder turned mindfulness teacher. And he's gone from the rush of skateboarding at age 11, super young, turning pro as a kid, and moved to the quietness of Buddhist vows and mindfulness retreats and sharing some of those learnings with other people. So his journey is really kind of a master class in exploring different kinds of paces with ourselves. So I wanted to talk to Teddi today because he's moved through a lot of internal battles, he's pushed boundaries, had a super high drive, and has kind of discovered that the healing that shows up after we stop running, after we stop pushing. He's turned adrenaline into awareness, movement into mindfulness. So if you've ever struggled to sit down or sit still or just be, Teddi is the guy who can show you how. So, and trust me, I know even the most resistant have found peace through his teaching. So today we're going to dive in a little bit to some of his history and his learnings and hopefully give you some really cool takeaways that you can use in your own life and your own journey. Welcome to What's the Rush, Teddi Dean.
Thank you, Rebecca. So happy to be here with you and happy to share story with you.
Okay.
I've looked at your background, the high drive and legendary woman that you are, and sharing a bit of my story about, we live a lot of life, and I think during our lifetime, we have we have these little mini lives in a lifetime, right? And
Chapters. I like to call them chapters.
yeah, chapters. And in my life, I think, it's been interesting because I've lost touch with so many of the people that I used to be, you
Mm.
know and this thing of just simply recognizing that we're in this constant state of becoming, going from a surfer skateboarding kid in the 1970s of Huntington Beach, California,
Yeah,
moving
that
into
was
the
the
80s.
whole
Yeah,
crazy time of like sort of counterculture, huh? Like so different
Huntington,
than where you are now.
Huntington Beach in the 70s, beautiful place to grow up as a child. It was very funky back then. It wasn't definitely wasn't the Huntington Beach that you see today. I still like Huntington Beach, but back then, Huntington Beach was a little bohemian,
Yeah.
especially the downtown area, and Main Street back then was lined with surfboard shop after surfboard shop after surfboard shop, and it drew in people that were kind of in the counterculture, the
Yeah, I mean,
counterculture.
I read your mom was like selling macrame. You know, you dropped out of school to take up professional skateboarding as a preteen, which is
Yeah.
kind of insane. Like, what an education.
Well, I didn't drop out of school, and I didn't know at that time. I didn't turn pro. I was touring a lot.
Okay.
So in junior high, I was on the road a bit, touring with Vans tennis shoes, with a portable plexiglass half pipe ramp um, that we would tow along on a trailer in our van, and then build it at the location, do our demonstrations, break it down, go have dinner somewhere, usually McDonald's, and off to the next location. So that
You're
was
like the first extreme sport athletes really before any of this. You were like that sort of really started a genre of sport, that whole skate culture.
yeah. Yeah, it was an exciting time. That was a lot of my junior high.
Yeah.
Was roaming around like that.
And you retired from skateboarding at like the ripe old age of 15 or 16 or
No,
something?
I stopped. So I wanted to compete more. I know that. Vans tennis shoes at that time was more of a demo team. I was competing at the time, but I wanted to I wanted to compete more, and I wanted to take that more seriously. And the team
Mhm.
that I wanted to be on was Stacy Peralta's team,
Yeah.
the Bones Brigade. That was and I was just laser focused to get on that team. And I was, I don't even know how it came to be, but after trying to get on the team for maybe about a year, Stacy called me up and had another up and coming skater that I skated with a lot named David Z. We called him David Z because the last name was really hard to pronounce. Really exciting skater. Um, Stacy called us both up and had us come to Marina Del Rey, and we stayed the weekend. And pretty much after that weekend, we were on the team. So my goal was achieved to get on basically the best team in the world at the time. We had Stevie Caballero, we had Alan Gelfin, we had Rodney Mullins, we had Tim Scroggs, we had Jay Smith, we had Mike McGill. And then after about being on this brought me into high school, and a little bit after that, we Stacy added a young Tony Hawk to the team.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and we just kind of dominated after that. We
Yeah.
were
I mean, what's it like at such a young age? I mean, you were in basically the development of a sport and the launching of basically extreme sports and that whole kind of genre, but you're like a young kid with this kind of super high drive and focus and doing stuff that nobody had ever done before. Like, where did that kind of intensity and focus, and like you said, to say all I wanted was to be on this team, it seems like a really young age to be that clear and that driven on what you wanted to do.
I wouldn't. I think it was more about passion.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't so much about drive because I really didn't know what drive was at the time, but
Yeah.
it was more about the passion to be on the Bones Brigade, to have Stacy as a coach and mentor.
Mm.
Um, I always remember, this was at a time when the skateboard industry was changing, and it was getting taken a bit more seriously, a bit more serious, but it was still definitely considered an outlaw sport.
Yeah.
You know?
What was the passion that was driving you at the time? What were you
I,
seeking? Yeah. What? Yeah.
yeah, I think it was just this sport, or this, it was more of a lifestyle when I started,
Yeah.
that ended up turning into a sport.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's what I knew.
Yeah.
It's something that gave me a sense of purpose and place.
Yeah.
Um, Raised by a single mother, um, like a lot of my friends at that time in the late 70s and early 80s, there was kind of one parent at home, and
Yeah.
um, so we all kind of raised ourselves. So being a part of the Bones Brigade, or having a
Yeah.
sense of community in this, and a sense of not so much family, but just community, and other like-minded people was very important, because I really was never, ever, ever interested in baseball, football,
Yeah.
any of the more traditional sort of sports. My whole life, I feel like, has been very countercultural,
Hmm.
from, you know, living off of macrame. I quite often say I was born into a macrame sweatshop. You know, it's the way me, my mom, my brother paid the rent.
Wow.
So um,
I want to the sports thing and I grew up in a single parent household as well with my mom and my sister, and my mom was at work all the time,
yeah,
and I found cross country running was what I found as a young girl, and it did, like you said, gave me a purpose, a place, a community, something to go to, something to like try hard at, and that was where I first got an intro into sports for me as a community, but also an education to get to know myself a little bit.
sure.
So I resonate with that of like needing something to do when you're a kid and your mom's at work. And
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really grateful for the surf and skate community throughout the 70s and into the 80s. Is very, very important in my life and continues to be important in my life.
Yeah, I mean, surfing has been a real constant from like 6 years old and until now, right? That has been one constant throughout your life. Is that accurate?
Pretty much. I had a little hiatus of drugs and alcohol for about 15 years,
Hmm.
but I surfed a bit during then, but there was a little bit of a hiatus. But it has been a constant. It was surfing, hands down, was my introduction to so-called spirituality, for lack of a better term, for this experience of something bigger than ourselves, this feeling of the effect of what it feels like to experience awe.
Yeah.
Um, and
What age were you when you started surfing and maybe put some of those things together, or maybe felt it and couldn't really articulate what you were feeling?
Very young, 8 years old, probably,
Yeah.
having,
Can you describe what you felt like surfing as a young kid? Like what was that giving you?
well, these, harmonizing with the natural world
Mm.
is something that, of course, we all know the effect that has on you, um, in an embodied way. Surfing, being out in the ocean, being with the ionic charge of the ocean and these waves, a very spontaneous type of sport of really having to learn to read the environment
Mm.
each and every moment to position
Yeah.
yourself right, to be able to catch a wave, that every wave is very different than one another. But also more than that, of having those days where you're just out there and maybe a lot of people have paddled in and it's maybe evening glass off and the sun is setting, it starts to get calm, maybe a dolphin swims by or something, and at 8 years old feeling this sense of just kind of dissolving into the natural world.
Mm.
I experienced this a lot as a kid.
Mm.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was experiencing because I wasn't I wasn't told to categorize these experiences yet and to kind of box them up into what it was and what they were. They were little mini spiritual experiences, or they were little mini awakenings.
Right.
Krishnamurti, he was a wonderful spiritual teacher, said that, if you teach a child a bird is a bird, that child will never see a bird again. So I
What do
want to
you
say
mean?
that
Can you explain that? Yeah.
if you teach a child that a bird is a bird, you will never, if you teach a child that a bird is a bird, that child will never see a bird again. So what
What will
he's pointing to
Yeah.
here is a bird is a bird feathers, is a
Mm.
bird just something that flies, is a bird. So we start to see that the definition of what a bird is, a bird isn't just a bird. a bird is many things. Many components make up what we call a bird.
Mm.
We start to kind of really, really categorize these things where we don't really think fluidly anymore.
Yeah.
We start to kind of box things in, which relates perfectly of like, I am this way, you're
Yeah.
that way. These things of just kind of categorizing things. So much of what I offer now is people to entertain. Don't be quite so sure that you know yourself.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, it's definitely the sort of adultness of our world in that we do want to categorize, organize, put definitions to things that probably we can't even put definitions to. They'll never be explained, like why the sun rises or why the sky looks the way it does. But
Mhm.
we want to put language, verbal language to a lot of things. So you're right that kids, they're I guess unencumbered with some of that to a certain age. I've been listening to I don't know if you've listened to it, the telepathy tapes, which is
Yeah.
a fascinating podcast about nonverbal autistic people and the way that they can communicate on a much deeper level because they have no language, that they're
Yeah.
actually communicating telepathically. And it's an interesting concept of how much is happening that we don't need to put language to. And I know this is a podcast and we're talking about stuff, so I probably seem a little hypocritical right now, but it makes me think about um, kind of the point of meditation is not to be good at meditation. The point of having these conversations is not necessarily the conversation right now, but that you go into the rest of your day or your life and you maybe think about some of these concepts. The same as the point of meditation is not to be good at those 10 minutes, is to
Hmm.
take some things into your life. So anyway, that concept of the bird is really interesting, of maybe not putting definitions on things.
Yeah. And it's like, what is Rebecca? You know,
I've been struggling with
Rebecca,
that. Yeah, yeah,
if Rebecca is just this, then that's it. There's no more. And it's not. The fact is Rebecca is many things and has been many people and has been this body that you're
right,
in right now is a totally
right.
different body than you had 5 years ago or even just a year ago.
It
So
is, and I just want to answer your question. What is Rebecca? I've been thinking about this probably for 10 years, of like, because my life's been defined as professional athlete, or you as skateboarder, or you as film, working in the film industry. We define ourselves by our work a lot. And kind of the last 10 years that really was prompted from my ride down the Ho Chi Minh Trail 10 years ago. I'm calling myself now an explorer, because we need to have words to help people find a connection. And to me, athlete was too small. And
yeah,
so I'm calling myself an explorer, which is part of the project of this podcast, is curiosity and looking around and exploring. And that may be on my bike, or it may be sitting in a meditation class with you.
yeah, yeah, I love that. What we're pointing at here is constant inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
Inquiring within. Who and what am I now, and how do I create space to continue to engage in this constant state of becoming, and to know
So,
that we're not there's a lot of emphasis on trying to arrive somewhere, and
right.
we know very clearly that that never really happens, and this isn't a bad thing at all. It's just like, what is next? We just had Stacy Peralta here at MEA Wisdom in Baja. It's the third time that I've had my old skateboard manager come here, and he's one of our favorite guest faculty. Um, and he does this thing, which he has this new play on beginner's mind of always learning something new, always trying something new. And he calls it the kook phase. And he's really adamant about be a kook in something. Learn, try something new where you are a kook. And he talks about his experience of he was a lifelong surfer and then he tried kiteboarding and then now he's trying foiling, and he talks about his struggles with both of those, especially foiling. It brought him to his knees. He was just like,
Yeah.
it was awful. But this is what we want to do. This is the stuff that we want to try hard things. I think you know that relationship very, very well of, how do we break out of this box of complacency with a sense of wanderlust and a sense of what's next, what am I capable of, and but also doing it in a way where it's not just ego, but it's
Yeah.
real curiosity of like what we can do.
Yeah, and I mean, we always hear beginner's mindset, beginner's mindset. You got to go do things that you suck at. But quite honestly, it kind of sucks to do things that you suck at.
Mhm.
I like doing hard things, but I like doing hard things that I have some skill at. So it's really hard to take that mindset as an adult, to sort of embarrass yourself,
Yeah.
especially if other people are around, and put something out into the world. I mean, this podcast is an experiment of that, or trying a different type of work. It's really hard as an adult to kind of go back to being a beginner. So sport is a great entry for a lot of these things, because there's no shame in like trying to learn to surf. Nobody cares. And I teach a lot of people to ride bikes or get outside. It's a little harder when you're a professional or a doctor or a lawyer, or you're a business owner, and then all of a sudden you need to make a career shift and be a beginner in like a work situation or a situation where you need financial stability. So I have trouble. Like, I love sport for that reason, but how do you bring being a kook into something that seems like it has a little more risk to it than maybe just looking stupid out in the ocean on a surfboard?
Well, how about this? Allowing ourselves to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
putting ourselves in situations where we are exposed in a way where we've never been exposed like before. It could be dancing, it
Mm-hmm.
could be dancing. It could be, because you're saying like, you kind of know this world that you're trying things new, but it is still under this umbrella of things that But I think the things that so much of what we're longing for, us human beings, is the permission to just be vulnerable,
Yeah.
to basically share what's on our mind, to share from the heart of how we're actually feeling, instead of when you see that person on the street, when they say, how are you? How are you? And we're just like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm good. But like, you're broken, you know,
Mm.
you're feeling some grief because a family member is passing away and you're caring for them or something. It could be a myriad of things. This idea of being okay to share what you're actually feeling, and to be vulnerable is one of the human traits that we all really are longing for. We see it each and every week here
Yeah.
at MEA, because the very first night, which you came and taught with us. And tell me about that first night where you sit in a circle and we did the if you really knew me exercise.
Yeah, and I'll just for people listening, you've heard me talk about MEA before, but MEA is the world's first midlife wisdom school, and it is a Baja and a Santa Fe campus that are all about helping people move through the transition of 40-ish plus, and whatever that is. And I was invited to come as a guest when Stephen Kotler, who's a friend, was presenting as a guest faculty in Santa Fe, and I got to attend. Um, and then we're building a relationship. So then I got to come be a guest facilitator, and Blood Road will be at the film festival in December, which I'm really excited about. But I want to go back to that first exercise of if you really knew me. And I came in, I didn't know anyone, which was great. There was an anonymity in the group of like, these people don't know me, they don't have a label for me, they don't know about world championships, or they don't have any expectation of me. And so there was
Yeah, the very first night of the
yeah,
week. Yeah.
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 And you basically say to these people, if you really knew me, and I remember I said, if you really knew me, you would know that I'm afraid most of
Mm.
the time. And for someone who's an extreme athlete, like,
Yeah.
that those aren't words that I would have said on social media or to my public. I'm saying it now because
Right.
MEA has trained me that like it was fine. I said it. It felt good to say it. And then it was released, and all these people were, some of them were like, wow, I wouldn't have thought that about you, but it's okay. And it
Yeah.
was just a simple, really powerful exercise. And what I loved about MEA is it's a bunch of people like me who are very skilled in their career, their life, but they're also needing some support.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And that's why I was like, I want to keep coming back. I want to be guest faculty. I want to live here forever.
Well, that
Which,
is, if I can expand on that first exercise,
yeah.
I've been with MEA since the beginning, so we're just a little over 8 years now, and I've been in almost all the workshops, and I've
And you're the
seen
head of mindfulness for
that.
MEA, so which is pretty cool.
So, what's really interesting about that first exercise is what I do see people jump right in, like
Yeah.
for whatever we created, people feel very comfortable quickly.
Hmm.
And especially the men. I'm so impressed with the men of really sharing from their heart of all these things that they've really wanted to share, but never do because it might not be appropriate. Um, each and every week, I guess I am still surprised how fast people jump in. There is this longing
Yeah.
to speak from one's heart.
Mhm.
It's and the evidence, I've watched it for the past 8 years. It's one of the most opening practices for us, and actually releasing of starting to actually be able to heal. Um,
Well, and just be yourself and let go of the baggage and the, labels we've all put on ourselves.
it's
there
the
was a
beginning of
huge weight lifted. It's a heavy weight that we carry if we think we're supposed to have it all figured out at whatever age.
yeah.
And you take that armor off, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, that's a lot easier. I'm not carrying all that baggage around.
And it's in the shared experience of like,
Yeah.
somebody saying, you know, I my marriage ended 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I remember when my marriage ended. I can relate to that. It's
Yeah.
relational. Oh, this person is sharing how their mother is in hospice. It's like, oh, that must be really, really difficult. My mother's going that way. I can tell it's coming one of these days. Or somebody in Stacy Peralta's world, he lost his boy, at a
Yeah.
young age. He lost his boy at 21 years old.
Well, that's why it's called a school. It's like we can all teach each other. And I talk about this a lot, that everyone's a mentor and a mentee, everyone's a teacher and a student.
Mhm.
We move fluidly, hopefully, between a lot of those realms, instead of just being as the adult, oh, I'm the one who's supposed to have it figured out. I talked to Gabby Reese. She was on the podcast recently, and she talked about how much her children are teaching her, and
Yeah.
she's supposed to be the mom. And I thought that was really refreshing, that she's open enough to be learning from her children.
Yeah. I think, that's I think because I've done a lot of retreat work. I've done a lot of, I've done a few teacher trainings in yoga. I've done some training in mindfulness meditation. I've done quite a lot of silent retreats. And what I find so unique about MEA and what we're offering here is all the facilitators and guest faculty position themselves right in the middle of it all too.
Right.
Um, they're not, we're here to inquire with one another, and we're offering up space so people can actually find their own way. And when people start to find their own way, this is where you get long lasting benefits of it. It's not just a step by step method. It's really just providing a safe container, a safe place of other people kind of just, how do I navigate this human experience, especially in midlife? And I have all these accolades. I have this family. I made some money, and something is still missing. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. What is it? And what it usually is what I see week in and week out. It's themselves. It's back to like, is that bird really a bird? You're going to
Yeah.
call that bird again. Like, I've been a CEO for the last 20 years. This is my identity. I am this. I'm the boss. I'm a father. I'm da 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 da. You leave that business, the business gets sold, or you have to leave, or you're bought out for some reason. Identity. Who am I now? What am I? How do I navigate this? Coming from a culture that is never really telling you to look inward ever. When have we ever been told to go inward and just, how are you feeling? How is the interiority of your own body? How is your inner hygiene?
You know,
How,
and for me, it's been sport. And I keep going back to what sport has taught me is actually to tune inward in a
Mhm.
certain way to a
Yeah,
certain point. How am I feeling? How's my heart rate? How's my breathing? And coming at it from a like competitive or I want to, keep my body going and moving. But it was has been my entree into listening to myself internally and a little bit of my sport. Like I started doing sport before there was power meters and, there were heart rate monitors and stuff. And now people are wearing, blood glucose monitors and are wearing all this stuff to track what's going on inside their body. But just simply doing a sport, you actually learn to listen to your own breathing. I think for me, and I always thought I would say, oh, I'm doing moving meditation because I don't like listening to music, or I do really long solo stuff. And I don't listen to I listen to myself while I'm out there doing it, or the sound of my tires. And I would always say, oh, I'm doing moving meditation, but I wasn't really, because there's so much input. There's the trees flying by, there's stuff happening. And when I had my brain injury a few years ago and really had to stop moving, that's where I was like, oh, this
yeah,
is what it means like to sit still and look inward. And I'm not good at that. So I'm behind you a bit on that journey of like sitting still and listening inward in a different way. Can
yeah,
you and can you kind of, I want you to talk a little bit about mindfulness and meditation and the difference between them. And you're being a little humble, but you've spent thousands and thousands of hours studying the mindfulness, meditation, Buddhist philosophy. And so you've put in your time there, and I'm just a new baby. So I'd love to dive in a little. Like, we don't sit still, we don't sit and listen to ourselves, we can't even stand in a grocery line without looking at our phone. And so I think people are seeking a return to that, but they don't know how, and there's so much distraction, they don't know what to do. I know there's a lot wrapped into that sort of multifaceted question, but let's turn inward a little bit and explore some of those things with you.
yeah. Um, you talking about having this hyper awareness of your body, right? Because of being an extreme athlete, being an athlete, and heart rate, all these physicality parts of your body. But how is the relationship between your mind and your body. This is what we're talking about now. So in that sort of high performance mode, you got a mind that's really pushing on you,
Mm-hmm.
to achieve. You got a
Mm-hmm.
mind that's most likely pretty critical, setting the bar.
No.
You know? So this is what we're talking about. We're wanting to, what is this relationship between the mind and the body, and how do we learn to kind of combine the two in a way where we start to get information that is much more useful to who and what we are now. You said you finally had to look inward when you got injured. It wasn't something that you were necessarily looking for, but when these practices of stillness and these practices of seated meditation and these practices of deep embodied prayer are probably the most important thing we can do in our lives.
Why
And
is that?
I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you why.
Okay.
It's probably one of the most important things for us to do is to to see that we can have a relationship with our minds and our bodies. It's quite often said that meditation is for us to find a sense of peace or find a sense of bliss, but more than that, it's the ability for us to sit in our own discomfort, to sit with exactly the way we're feeling here at this moment. If we're feeling sad, or if we're feeling joyful, or if we're feeling a wave of grief coming over us, can we sit with that? Can we sit with our own anger and not react? Can we have some sort of practice where we're actually allowed to put our lives down for a moment, and to tune into the inner landscape of how we're actually feeling? What are we carrying into our day? And once we see what we're feeling and what we're carrying into the day, if we can identify it a little bit, I'm carrying anger into the day. I'm having some trouble with a colleague or something, right? And I'm carrying it into the day. If I'm aware of that, let me ask you this. Who gets the brunt of that anger or sort of frustration? Who usually gets the brunt of that?
Yeah, the people I love the most.
Yeah,
The
totally.
people closest to me.
Exactly. So it's like, so much of the time we wake up, you kind of check your phone, check an email, off to the races. You spend the rest of your day trying to catch up with yourself. You're not even aware that maybe this kind of frustrating problem that you're dealing with, maybe at your work or with a relative or something, you haven't even had time to it's just there. So who gets the brunt of it is usually your partner or somebody close to you. So if we're able to kind of just see the lay of the land before we kind of start to engage in our lives, this can be so beneficial. Because really, when Rebecca is dealing with something that's super frustrating and she pops off, and you pop off at your partner, it's really not you. Because Rebecca would never want to pop off to her partner. Like, you at your essence don't
Yeah.
want to do that. You're responsible for it, for your action, but you're asleep. You're not awake when you do these things. You see
Can
what I'm
I?
getting?
Okay, yeah, I do. I want to dive a little deeper into that. So say I'm spend 10 minutes in the morning and I realize, wow, I'm really dealing with this, I'm really angry at this thing that happened at work. I'm really angry at this person. And I
Yeah.
think about that for 10 minutes and I process it, but I don't have a solution to the problem. It's still there. It's making me feel icky even thinking about it because we want to avoid those icky situations.
Mhm.
So it might spare my partner, but it feels like it might erode and be like a cancerous thing in me if I'm just thinking about the terrible stuff in my life, or I'm thinking about something that's really upsetting to me. So I want to know a little bit about why is that beneficial to spend time in discomfort, in the things that we put a lot of energy into avoiding.
So the Buddha talks about the three poisons:
Okay.
greed, hatred, and delusion. Greed, hatred, delusion. We
Okay.
engage in any one of those mind states, and you will poison yourself. You know what it feels like when you're angry. It feels icky. You're just
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. It doesn't feel good biochemically. This is what the most beautiful thing about this body is the more we attune with it, it'll tell us immediately. Like when we feel anger, it does not feel good. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel good. All this biochemical stuff happens. Cortisol gets flushed through the system. Heart rate goes up. We retract. And then we do things that aren't in alignment with our own hearts. So we go to the antidote. In the Buddhist tradition, they talk a lot about the antidotes. And it's right. We go right to the heart, the qualities of the heart. I'm carrying this frustration into the day. I need to do heart practice here during my 10-minute sit in the morning, my 20-minute sit in the morning. I'm going to focus on the unfinished business of my own heart.
Oh, I've never heard this antidote thing. I just thought you're supposed to sit with the crappy feeling. So I like that you're giving us then what to do about
You sit with it enough to recognize it. And when
Yeah.
we recognize it, we see it, we recognize
Mhm.
it, we feel into it, then we can start to incrementally start to bring ourselves back on
Yeah.
our own path of entering the day with the heart rather than mind. So much of the time we're entering the day with our conditioned mind, our mind that's so good at saying us against them, picking and choosing good and bad, all of these things. But when we enter the day with sort of the felt sense, the qualities of one's own heart, it helps soften these kind of these mental states that are often really heightened by our own minds.
I
And
Yeah.
I want to go through these qualities of heart real
Yeah.
quick for
Do
you.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Loving kindness being one of them, and practicing that on yourself. Can I be kinder and gentler to myself? So,
Ooh,
you
that's a
know,
hard one.
it's the hardest one in the world and it's a lifelong practice.
Yeah.
But believe me, that's the one. If you're close to mastering that in any way, shape, or form, you're going to live a really good life. You're going
Mm,
to live an absolutely awakened, beautiful life.
yeah.
It doesn't mean you're not going to navigate from abundance to loss and everything in between, but you're going to do it with grace.
Mm,
You know, you're going to be doing it in a way that's not self-absorbed.
yeah.
So we have loving kindness first
Hmm.
and foremost. Can I be gentler with myself? Can I start to move in a direction to really love myself in a way that I love my partner, the way I love my dog, the way I love my children? Can I move in that direction? It's a hard one. It's a very
Yeah.
hard one. But like everything that I'm talking about here is incremental and you'll feel it. You'll feel it. It's very subtle the way it comes up, but you need to do it for a while. You'll start to feel it. It's not a big sort of aha or anything. It just starts to come in subtly. And pretty soon you just recognize after 6 months, it's like, wow, I'm
Mm,
really through this meta practice, this loving kindness practice towards myself, I'm really feeling the effects of my practice. I'm being a better person, flat out. The
yeah.
second one would be compassion, which is really the story of our species. The story of our species is compassion. We wouldn't be here anymore if it wasn't for compassion. Compassion is the fabric of this human experience, and compassion is the expression of life itself. It's something that allows us to access our own innate wisdom within
How's
ourselves.
compassion different than kindness?
Compassion, kindness can be a component of compassion.
Mhm.
Kindness can be, we want to be authentic. Compassion tends to be extremely authentic because you can't really engage in compassion as compassion alone. A component to compassion is wisdom,
Okay.
of this participatory sense of knowing what is right, what
Yeah.
is actually right. Kindness we can do from an egoic state to
Mm.
make ourselves feel good too, but we can
Okay.
also do kindness from an authentic state. But
Right.
it's something we want to be aware of. Are we doing this to just feed our own ego? Kind of, this do-gooder mentality, and or do we want to do it from a place of authenticity that has so much to do with this sense of basic goodness that we're born with, that I feel like we're born with.
Yeah.
Sympathetic joy is another one. That's the ability to experience the joyfulness of other people's good fortune.
Mm.
To not go into envy or jealousy.
Yeah.
You know, to to celebrate in the good fortune of others. And lastly, probably one of the more important ones I feel like is this place of equanimity. And this is where the body comes into play again, this place of evenness, of just finding some evenness. And it's this place that I tend to describe as it's kind of beyond the dualistic world that we live in. This kind of us against them, left and right, day and night, pleasure and pain, happy, sad, life and death. One defines the other. One does not exist without the other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when we start to quiet ourselves, when we do actually take a seat and sit, eventually we will find this place that's right in the middle.
Yeah.
We'll start to find that we can sit behind the chatter, the egoic mind, telling you to get up and how dare you just sit. Just like on the night of the Buddha's awakening, the Buddha sat there quietly hovering right in this middle place between this dualistic world, and the
Mm.
mind was just bombarding him with negative thoughts. You loser, how dare you? Get up, you can't sit there, go do something with your life, da 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 da. And he just sat in meditation and let the mind just have its way with them. And just to see that we can use this body as a refuge, we can find this safe haven within ourselves to just let ourselves be, and to not always have to be a slave to this mind. Is it
There's
making any sense?
Oh my gosh, there's so much in this that what I really want to hone in on that you've outlined basically that no one has ever really explained to me. And I'm new in these practices, but the antidote to feeling greed, hatred, delusion, envy is that you don't just sit there and experience them, then you flip it and you experience loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, that you have something to replace it with. And this is like if you read Atomic Habits or anything else, if you remove one thing, you need to put something else in its
Yeah.
place. And I think that's where I've gotten stuck is, okay, I can try to not be angry, but what do I replace it with? And I love you basically giving us a super simple outline to be our own healer and to rehabilitate ourselves.
Nobody's.
I'll go back to a sports analogy because this makes me think of any injury. Like you break a bone and it heals wrong, and you don't want to do the PT because it's really painful. You don't want to dig into that injury and like pick the dirt out and sew up the tendons. And then even when it's closed, you've got to do all this really painful rehab to get the motion and the movement back, or the mobility back into that body part. This sound to me, it's exactly the same thing of healing an injury, but sort of, I guess, a moral or like an internal, not brokenness, but something that just isn't working right. And I don't want to say people are broken or anything, but there's a way to heal yourself, but that it's a little painful. Like, there's not a magic pill that happens in one day. Like you said, it is a slow, like training for any event. It's a slow, deliberate, consistent showing up practice that you don't, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh, last year, that's what's been happening with my brain injury recovery. It's been very slow, but I can look back at my journals and go, oh yeah, okay, I've made progress. But I love the outline that you gave us. It, for somebody who is kind of an organized person, and I need a little bit of structure, and I think a lot of us are that way, it does seem really clear to me.
Yeah, it's, we live in a culture and a world where we have access to quick results most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People, places, and things, we have access to that pretty quickly. We're used to that. We can't apply the same thing to our so-called spiritual growth. You know, we we need to attune in a way where we're cultivating patience to let ourselves really start to come back to earth in a way, to let the dust settle enough so that we can really see what is actually happening right now. And it's just like, well, I'm carrying a huge wave of grief and I've just been living with it. This low hum of anxiety that we're just willing to live with, you know, because we don't know anything else different. We look at friends and family, they're all riding at the same level. We have no reference point. The reference point starts to come from just giving ourselves permission to stop and to really, it's a constant developing an intimacy within ourselves of really learning to see how to see our internal landscape and to see how we are actually changing a bit incrementally. In each increment, you will feel an immense amount of relief.
Yeah.
Because you're just slowly surrendering. And I focus a lot on this, the process of this body breathing. It's all out breath. This body, every breath is telling us to let go and not grip too tight. You talk about, you don't want to use the term broken, and you don't want to use the term like any sort of victimization of like this life that we have, of like where we come from and what has happened to us and all this stuff. But it's really good base level to just sit from time to time and just know that everything that you hold and love dear to your heart won't be there someday. So this isn't kid stuff. This is the first step of really living an awakened life where you start to experience the impermanence of it all. So you start to see everything is impermanent. Why do I feel stuck? You're not stuck. And that's the beginning of starting to move out of this so-called stuckness, because you start to move into incrementally something that's more wholesome. And it could be just starting to reacquaint ourselves with the simple pleasures of life. You and I, we know what it's like to go big. We lived in that world for a while. And then we're brought to our knees by something. Me, it was alcoholism, at 35, finally taking care of that issue. It was an injury, later on in my life, it was addiction to work.
Yeah.
I got shingles at 40. It's weird, These are all teaching moments. you know?
I want to dive into sort of another Buddhist component that's been really essential, and psychology shows it too. Is that we need community. We
Yeah.
need people around us to support this journey, and it's one of the Buddhist principles. You want to talk
Well,
about
it's
Sangha?
the
Yeah.
most important principle, because when we start to dip our toe in this world of this, the kind of, I always go back to the mystery of all of this. We start to talk about things that don't really they don't really lend themselves to words and definitions, right? So you start to feel untethered because you're conditioned to be, I need to know what's next. Before I make a move, I want to make sure that I have the nice landing pad ready. So we end up, the landing pad is never plumped up enough and soft enough and ready for us to make that move. So we kind of just stay with what is and what we know.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important for us to, lost my track here, to,
Well, we were talking about community and Sangha and like getting
community.
together and yeah.
Exactly, community. But thank you for bringing me back to that. It's other like-minded people to share this journey with.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is why mindfulness meditation communities are so popular.
Yeah.
They're in all cities now. They're free. It's donation based. Everybody coming together to just sit quietly with one another for 20 minutes. Usually
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit guided. There's a little break. And then after that, there's a Dharma talk, usually a very practical talk, very accessible talk on how to navigate the inner critic, or how to cultivate loving kindness, or how to recognize that this life is totally impermanent and all phenomena is impermanence. So, and it's also what you saw happen at your time here at MEA.
Right.
All of us here in midlife, kind of like wondering what's next. Is it, this kind of, what I see a lot is this kind of urgency to go big again. Well, maybe it's not going big again. Maybe it's like learning to start to settle in a way that you've never experienced in your life before. And maybe it's about this kind of another Buddhist tradition of renunciation. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not a denial of denying ourselves of anything. It's actually opening up our life in a way by just renouncing an old way of living that
Hmm.
isn't really speaking to us anymore.
Yeah.
But it can be
It's moving to another chapter. Like
very
we talked about the
disorienting.
book in the
I'll,
chapters.
yeah, and I'll talk so much about like how, instead of how high you can set the bar anymore, how low can you set the bar? And what I mean by that is, what can you live without?
Mm.
What can you live without to have more space?
Yeah.
To ponder and ruminate. Like, when do we give ourselves time to just kind of like daydream? Or what about this? It's so negative, like to entertain a little boredom. Boredom is
Mm-hmm.
real. Artists understand boredom. That's why I love artists so much. And I went to art school. I've always been an artist. In fact, talking about categories, I recently changed my Instagram profile. I put artists up there now, because it just saying mindfulness teacher is it's just too, I have to just wiggle out of that. I just get very like, I don't, artist is best for me. Do you know what I mean? It keeps it a little open.
Well, the artist and explorer, we've both found
Or
a sort of
I love that.
definition to put on ourselves that feels more expansive instead of
Yeah.
limiting.
Yeah.
So, Teddy, I want to go into a little bit, just as we wrap up here. You you've hit on so many things that What's the Rush is based upon, and you have a free group every Sunday.
Oh
Can
yeah, I
you
do. Yeah.
can you talk about that, because I want to lead people there and just briefly let people know, and we'll put the link, but an invitation to kind of dive a little deeper and to build a community.
Yeah.
for some of this kind of stuff.
Back to just wrap up with community real quick is community is one of the most important things you can do. You have, if you're of the Christian faith, you have the teachings of Jesus, then you have the writing, the Bible of Jesus, and then you have your church or your synagogue
Right,
that you go to or whatever. Buddhist
right,
tradition, that you taking refuge in the Buddha, taking refuge in the Dharma, and then you have your Sangha community.
right.
Almost all spiritual teachers that are not in guru culture will say the most important thing when you start to go down this route is community. So to
Yeah.
find a community, mindfulness meditation community, places like MEA, that are other like-minded people that are entertaining this new, it's really a new way of living, a new lifestyle, you know.
Well, it's
Um,
what we found. You found community in skateboarding. I found it in running
yeah,
and sport, and it's another way to find a community, even if you don't have all the teachings or the skills or whatever. You still join the community first,
yeah.
and then you start to grow from there. So tell us about your Sunday song. How do you say it?
Sunday Sangha.
Sangha. That's
I
right.
do it every Sunday from 5 to 6 on Zoom.
Yeah.
I can give you the link to put in there.
Yeah.
Start 5 to 6 Pacific. We start 5 o'clock Pacific time. Guided 20-25 minute meditation, and then we have an opportunity to share teachings in mindfulness, and then open it up to a discussion. It's a nice way. We're on about 5 years. I started it during COVID.
I love
Um,
it.
it's open to the public. Most people that join in on it are usually from MEA, but I have people that either that or they've found out about Sunday Sangha and they've joined, and then they later have come to MEA, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And then I do workshops here. Um, Stacy Peralta will be back next year. He always comes in June. I co-curate that workshop, and I also am curating a silent retreat that we're having at MEA in August at our Santa Fe campus. And I'm also curated a gratitude week for Thanksgiving down here in Baja. If you want to talk about reprieve, if you maybe want to reprieve your family this evening,
Join a
maybe
different kind of family. Yeah.
you want to do something different and have come into this really beautiful. It's our second one. We're going to make it an annual week, a week of gratitude. We'll still
I
have a
love
nice.
how much you're sharing with all of us, and I just really appreciate it. And maybe we wrap up by you sharing just like a moment of breathing. And if you're driving in your car listening to this, maybe keep your eyes open. But yeah, do you want to wrap us up with a little centering and grounding
Sure.
and just kind of a send off? And then hopefully we'll be joining you on Sundays.
Yeah. I have one other thing to plug is I do
Yeah.
have a mindfulness of the body, breath, and food retreat in the
Oh,
south
yeah.
of France.
Yeah.
And that's in September. You can see all the info on all of this stuff at teddidean.com.
Yeah,
T
we'll include all that. It's awesome. Yeah, with the Teddy with an I.
Teddy with an I. All
Um,
right. A little ending
are you going to
meditation
close us
here.
up? Okay.
Yeah. Don't get nervous. So I
I'm
do
not
want to
nervous.
one little thing real quick. Some people will say, "Oh, I don't meditate or I don't pray because I think too much." Well,
Mm-hmm.
we all think a lot. That's not the problem. It's our attachment to the thinking
Mm-hmm.
that gets us in trouble. So, in this practice here, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to sit behind the thinking. I'm going to do my best to get us there. So, just get comfortable and also know you don't have to look like this guy right there. Meditate. You don't
Yeah.
have. You can sit in a chair. I want you to be comfortable. So I'd rather you be comfortable than try to look the part, right? So softly close your eyes. Just close your eyes. And right off the bat, let's just go to the body with our awareness. And I want us to engage in a bit of gratitude for this body. Let's start with some gratitude for this body, this container, this marvelous container that's been carrying us through this life. Even this container that maybe we don't like certain things about it, certain ways it looks. But let's be grateful for this container that has always been there, that has offered this precious human experience. And one of the best things we can do is just to give it some attention. So let that awareness just almost like wash through your whole body, the top of your head to the backs of your eyes. And see if you can soften that area right behind your eyes. Travel down your jawline, relax your palate, release your shoulders. Let your tummy be soft. And down through the legs and the feet, planted upon the earth. And to let the body be heavy, to feel into the physicality of your body. The heaviness of the body upon the ground, the heaviness of the body upon the earth. And let yourself be supported. Let yourself recognize what is happening to each and every one of us at this moment. We're being supported. We're being held up. And the earth is providing everything, the bare essentials to keep ourselves alive, offering all of this to us at this moment freely. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, all offered up, provided. So we can just let ourselves know that our needs are met right here at this moment. And we can settle. And we can start to just be. And if we want to, we can start to find a little natural rhythm. But just lightly, tenderly placing our awareness upon the breath. Not manipulating the breath, not really changing a thing, but just lightly being aware of the gentle ebb and flow of the body breathing. Each breath in itself, the life force, the in-breath as the in-breath, the out-breath as the out-breath. This process of the body breathing and how it just comes out of nowhere. And how we never even really think about it. But the breath is just humming along. As long as we're walking this earth, this breath and this heartbeat are just doing exactly what they're supposed to do in perfect harmony. But by just placing our awareness upon the breath, we can start to feel into the natural nurturing qualities of the breath, the compassionate nature, the process of this body breathing. And we feel the breath expand throughout the body and contract, almost as if we're breathing in and out of each and every pore upon our skin. And we just start to soak to soak in this restful awareness, to feel the nervous system start to come a little closer to its natural resting state. It's a simple practice. And if your mind is very active, if your mind is already judging and critiquing, just let it do what it's going to do. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to manipulate it. Just stay with the nurturing qualities of the breath. And just sit behind with your awareness. Sit behind the activity of mind. Continue to use that awareness washing through your body, using the body as a refuge. A very simple practice. We can end with a simple blessing by bringing our hands to prayer. May all beings find their own natural rhythm. May all beings continue to recognize this foundation of joy that just comes with this human experience. May all beings drop into grace. May all beings be free of suffering. Namaste.
Namaste.
A little mini meditation, you know. The beauty of this is we can do it anywhere at any time.
I heard a bird in the background chirping, and I kept, it made me think of a bird is not a bird. So
Yeah.
I guess the bird is attuned to our conversation today as well.
Yeah. Such a pleasure to chat with you like this. And yeah.
Teddi Dean, thank you for spending this time with us and for sharing a little bit of your journey. And hopefully there'll be more of it on Sundays and in the other places we can find you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's a long and dusty road and a hot and heavy load. Folks I meet ain't always kind. Some are bad, some are good, some have done the best they could. Some have tried to ease my troubling mind. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wonder where I'm bound.